Welcome. Today's lesson is going to be a very quick lesson on just basic properties of addition and multiplication. So this does not deal with subtraction or division. I just want to clarify this. These only deal with addition and multiplication. And there are a few that only deal with multiplication, like the very first one here, the zero property of multiplication. Now that sounds kind of trivial, but it is a property that's very important, especially as you move into some higher mathematics. It's very important to realize when you times by zero any other number, it equals zero. And the same thing if the zero is first. Zero times any number is still going to equal zero. That's called the zero property of multiplication. The next one is the identity property of addition. The addition does not have a zero property, by the way, just multiplication. But addition does have the identity property, which basically means if you add 0 to any number, 7 plus 0, it stays that same original number of 7. Or if you add 0 to 15, it's 15. It doesn't matter if the 0 is in front or behind. We also have the identity property of multiplication, but this uses 1. In other words, 8 times 1 is equal to 8, or 1 times 89 is equal to 89. So again, we don't care if the 1's in front or afterwards, but if you multiply by 1, it doesn't change the number. That's why it's called the identity property. We have the commutative property of addition. Commutative just means the order that you add two numbers together doesn't matter. If you have the 4 added to the 5, it's going to be the same as if you add the 5 to the 4. We also have the commutative property of multiplication, which is basically very similar, the same thing as the addition one. The order of multiplication doesn't matter. 7 times 8 will be exactly the same as 8 times 7. We then have the associative property of addition. The associative just basically means if we add 3 and 4 together first and then add again to 5, it would have been just the same if we added the 4 and the 5 first and then added the 3. So the order that we add things, and this strictly comes to addition, the order we add them really doesn't matter. We also have the associative property of multiplication, which is basically the same thing like addition. In other words, if we multiply 5 times 2 and then multiply by 9, it would have been just as fine to multiply 2 by 9 and then times by 5. The last one I want to talk about only applies to multiplication. It's the distributive property of multiplication. If we have two things being added together first in parentheses, and then we're timesing by a number on the outside of the parentheses, we can, instead of adding the 3 to the 7, we can actually distribute the 5 in and multiply both terms in parentheses by 5. So in other words, 5 times 3 and plus 5 times 7. So we keep the plus symbol, but we multiply both inner terms by the outside term. And don't get confused if the multiplication is on behind the parentheses. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. You still just distribute in. So we take that first number of 12, multiply it by that outside number 7, and then we do the plus symbol, and then we multiply the second number 36 also by the outside number of 7. This should allow you to understand and do the exercise that I've assigned, and we will talk to you next time.